Well, welcome back, guys. I'm here with the very great Scott Mitchell, who's going to talk to us about State Question 788. Many didn't think that it would pass. Some did. You know, it's back and forth. But here we are in the wake of that passage. And now what's kind of up in the air is whether or not we're going to have a special session. And, you know, it's foggy, and the script is kind of flipping a little bit.
I like that. The script is flipped. So, well, Chris, why don't we start with what was being said before the election? Okay, these are the things that you want to remember. One is that the State Question 788 was, the way it was written was so large you could drive a semi-truck. Remember all of that?
It's paving the way to recreational marijuana is what a lot of people say.
And it's got to be tightened up. Everybody said we've got to tighten this up. The other thing that's interesting to remember was people said, well, the state health department can't take care of this. And they said, the officials there, we've got to keep in mind, there's new leadership at the State Department of Health. But it was a train wreck, a dumpster fire, whatever you want to call it.
And the State Department of Health, that's a whole other story.
Whole different story. So most everybody in authority was agreeing that this is not the organization that could do this. So time passes forward, State Question 788 passes, and now we have this discussion only about 2 or 3 days after the election. We have the governor saying, well, I don't have a special session. So the question then becomes, what changed in about 72 hours? I think we know what changed in about 72 hours is politics. But the fact is, that is the issue right now. We saw this week, Bud Scott's group had a press conference. They say, we cannot do just letting the State Department of Health, the rulemaking, do this. We have to have a special session, and that is where the rub is.
So what's going to happen in the event of there not being a special session? Because we've seen a lot of negative ads against State Question 788, how it's going to affect our children and youth, and college dorms are going to be filled with marijuana plants. I imagine people going to playgrounds and seeing people lining up next to children and getting up in arms and writing to their legislators. What's the scenario there?
Well, the scenario is this. You could either have the legislature in town having a special session before a big election. Think about that one. All right, it took a year and a half to get the teacher pay raise bill done. There are people inside the Republican Party right now it's their worst case nightmare to have the legislature in session just before the runoffs or just before the election in November. You saw how many people showed up in the primary to vote for State Question 788. Bud Scott, who runs the group is recognized as the leaders in this group, he's an attorney, is saying we simply cannot do a responsible job if we have only rulemaking. And the fact is that people know, even though the leadership has changed the State Department of Health, you know there are still a lot of problems over there. And Bud's group says they just simply can't do it.
What are some of the primary important regulations that have been advocated so far?
Well, making medical marijuana legal. I mean, that's just basically what it is. How you do it, how many growers you have, what licenses are going to, how they're going to be distributed, all of these things have to be answered.
I know a lot of people have talked about there needs to be specific illnesses that need to be on the books that can be treated with this medical marijuana.
All of that's on the table. All that's on the table. Okay. So the question then becomes, is it going to be done through rulemaking? But Scott's group says it can't, or a special session. Nobody in the GOP, my understanding, wants a special session. Too much downside. We'll mention that Bud Scott, we're going to have a Facebook Live here in just a few minutes. Tune in that, go to the News 9 Facebook page, Mitchell Talks. We'll see you there.
Thank you, Scott.